welcome back. It's been a minute.
It's been like 2 weeks, yeah.
It's been a while.
We've been on a hiatus.
We had midterms.
We just all been busy.
We got done with midterms, yeah.
Yeah, midterms just finished, so we're back.
Yes.
It's pretty great. Our guest this week is Mr. Colter Bonaroti. He plays drum set for us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm a worship arts major here at GCU. This is my second year. I'm a local from Gilbert, Arizona. And I was choosing between here and a music program in Nashville, actually. But I'm really glad that I chose this place because it taught me that sometimes connections are a little bit better than just the competition of music. And I found that to be really valuable here at GCU with projects in the recording studio, and then also just with groups like Gateway Brass that I've been able to be involved in because they've challenged me musically. I've made some great friendships in the process, and yeah, that's been my journey here so far.
Nice. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about like how you found Gateway Brass and how you kind of like became one of us?
Yeah, that was an interesting day, actually. I was just waiting in line to get some food, actually, at this place called Lopicelli's, which is not as good anymore this year.
I think it's gone. They got rid of it.
No, it's still there.
I thought they got rid of it.
It's the other half of that center thing.
No, I still think they got rid of it.
It was there at the beginning of the semester.
It was there at the beginning, but I think they just trashed
did they
it.
get rid of it?
I think it's still
I mean, it wasn't
there.
any good this year anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It's dead to me. Anyway. It's dead
Agreed.
to me.
Yes. But anyways, I was waiting in line to get some pasta, and then Nate and Augie actually came up to me and told me that they were getting a band together that plays like young blood brass band covers and like bluegrass, that kind of stuff, and they asked if I'd be interested in being the drum set player. And so I came a couple times, and I ended up really enjoying it. And at first I didn't end up playing drum set actually because I missed a lot of the rehearsals to begin with because I was still making the transition between like serving at church. I play in the worship bands a lot in quite a few churches around here actually, and then transitioning to making time for the Gateway Brass rehearsals on Sunday afternoons. So at first it was another drummer, Taylor, that was drumming quite a bit, and I understood that, but I started to get a lot more drum set experience when we were getting ready for our first gig at the Grand, and then with our first gig ever actually at the family weekend. I kind of just got thrown in there after not a lot of rehearsal, but I'm so glad I did because it ended up being an amazing time, and I think we did a great job for throwing like what was it, 30 minutes of music together in like
2 days?
Yeah, like
2
2 days.
days.
I just remembered it was less than a week, but yeah. And after that weekend, I felt like I sort of made my mark a lot more than I had the first couple months we were together as a band. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why that family weekend performance was really special for me.
And this man, he's being really modest. He's always really modest. But why don't you talk about the second gig and what we had him do?
Oh yeah, so at the second gig was in Cactus, and I remember we had like a limited number of players just because the stage was so small and everything, and so we were like, well, we need auxiliary percussion. And did you guys forget to bring auxiliary percussion? Wasn't that what happened?
Not exactly. So we did remember, but what we forgot to do was unlock the room where the auxiliary was.
Yeah. So they didn't. Yeah. So they couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
And so this man improvised and used his hydro flask as a cowbell.
Yes.
And wow, it made a statement. It got the attention of people. That was for sure. Like, it's not only sounded good, it was just really entertaining to watch this man sit there with a hydro flask and just
Yep.
Yes.
And then for the majority of the early gigs, you were just on auxiliary. And then in between the first and second Grand gig,
we lightened Taylor's load a lot.
Yeah.
And we wanted to give you a lot more time on drum set.
I thought Taylor just like dropped out after the first Grand gig, or was he still there?
He was still, prior to the first Grand gig, he was still there. He was just super busy.
Yeah.
But then after the Grand gig, that's when Taylor was like, hey guys, well, I'm already in another band. and I just started school and I really want to get ahead in that, so I just need to see what my availability is like, but it looks like I have to leave, unfortunately. And we're like, you know, that happens. You get too much on your plate and you got to go. So I understand he did his best, but we had to throw in Colter on every single start because Nick doesn't play set.
Which is 20 or 30 songs.
That set was 30, it was 32.
Yeah.
We played 32 songs that night.
Which, I mean, he had already knew, like, 6 maybe?
I knew 8 of them.
Yeah, you knew 8 of them pretty well. But he learned, like, 25 new songs in 3 weeks, in like a month.
It was not a lot of time at all. And we were just like, okay, go for it. and it worked out. So like I have no complaints at all. And it was different just because you and Taylor just had different style of drumming, which was interesting because you could tell the difference between you. Like with a ballad, like your interpretation versus Taylor's interpretation was different, and just because Taylor is a hardcore rock drummer compared to you. I mean, you still had the elements to it. It was just his spin was like way more just edgy, and yours is more yours. I mean, now you're actually really you play the same level as him when it comes to that now. But like at the time, you had to learn. You had to learn so many different styles and feels and time changes and just everything. It was insane just how you were able to jump in and not one time be like, I'm not going to do this. This sucks.
Because he went the entire time without music.
Yeah.
Which, as wind players, I think all of us needed at least music for one song. Most of us a lot more. He did all of them from memory without music.
Yeah.
He's insane. Even if he doesn't admit it.
Yeah, and like the other thing too is you missed a lot of rehearsals because of church band, and you were able to be like, hey man, I'm just gonna come in, I'm gonna practice on my own, don't worry about it. And I'm like, at first I was skeptical because it's like I've known people who are like, no man, I got it, I'm just gonna go practice, like I got it. And I'm like, okay, and then
totally
just butcher it, and I'm like, but with you, like that was only the first time with you, and then after that you'd be like, hey, I'm gonna that's okay. I'm not worried about you. This doesn't apply. It's like I've had meetings where it's like, guys, we need to practice our music. Colter, you're okay. You did a good job, buddy. You're okay, buddy. Like, don't stress. But yes. Oh man.
Yeah, I am very unprepared for this podcast.
You had how long? 3 weeks to come up with questions?
Oh gosh. Hey, in my defense,
that's all good.
I don't have a defense.
You don't have a defense. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
I'd like to say I've been busy, which is true on the weekends, but not really during the week. So that's on
He has
me.
one job. He runs the podcast. You have one job. It's okay. I'm just messing with you. I'm giving you a hard time. But Colter, tell us, what do you want to do after all of this? After you get out of college?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have asked me that question with worship arts, you know, like because it's a very specific degree of like contemporary music, like what you would see on a big stage at church. Learning all those instruments and how to work with them when you're writing your own songs. It's like that combination of learning music and like original music, like how to create that, and then also a mix of learning a lot of theology and like ministry leadership. So it's very geared towards setting you up to do like one of 2 or 3 things. That would be like worship pastor, some sort of role in ministry, like that would set you up to do great in like any sort of like church staff role or something like that. But the third one aligns most with what I would want to do, which would be like perform in music as a studio musician or like a songwriter for people on a regular basis. That would be like my dream, to like either arrange scores for movies or TV shows. That would be amazing, or obviously be like a performer with a band, like maybe even Gateway Brass, depending on where it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now I just have a lot of different callings with like just what God's been telling me through worship arts, and then also just the many opportunities that I've gotten here at GCU with music. So I'm kind of just using those opportunities to the fullest to see how close I can get to achieving that dream of being a musician as like a profession.
Mm-hmm.
where do you want to go, like, geographically? Do you want to stay here in Phoenix, or do you want to go somewhere else?
I'd say, I've thought about it a little bit, and I'd say LA makes the most sense because it's the closest, like what you'd want to call a music scene around here. Phoenix has a lot of opportunity to create a music scene, and I have a lot of connections here where I could maybe make that happen. But like in terms of where I'd want to go to pursue like a studio musician job professionally, it would probably be either LA, just for the location making sense. It's close to home, and it's also where a lot of like Christian artists that I admire have been very successful. But there's also obviously Nashville, which I was like really drawn to by experiencing it. And I did end up like making the commercial music program in Belmont there, so that kind of got me excited of like, oh, there is a chance that I can make it here. So honestly, I don't know where for sure I'd want to go yet. I'm kind of seeing where these opportunities are taking me with like who I'm able to make these musical connections with. But I'd say the big dream would be Nashville, honestly. Yeah.
What about you, Nate? I don't think we've talked about this.
Where do I want to go?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, after college, I know I have to go get a master's degree. And so, like, I've already been in, like, looks and talks with people about where I should be going. And, like, my instructor's been putting, like, a couple places for me to look at. And, well, I've obviously looked at the University of Georgia. I don't know about that one. I just know it has a great program. I was thinking of the University of Georgia. There's ASU, has one of the best music programs in the nation.
Yeah.
I would be local, wouldn't really have to travel any further. Somewhere in LA, like UCLA or Colburn University, which is really cool, is if you make the audition and you get accepted into their school, you would be able to get a full ride scholarship. So they'll pay for your housing, they'll pay for your books, they'll pay for your everything. And then they put you in one of their ensembles, which I was like, that's very tempting. Also, they train with people who are in the LA Philharmonic.
Yeah.
They're downtown LA, so it's in a big music scene. And so
do you want to play in a Philharmonic, or?
That's one of the goals, and that's the thing I've been trying to decide too. It's like, I really love classical music and like want to play classical music for the rest of my life, but the bigger issue is like deciding, do I want to be a classical musician, or do I want to be more of a jazz musician, or even do I want to be more of like what we are, like almost alternative group? Like,
yeah,
that's a decision you got to make.
Because I don't know like how musically inclined or musically educated the people watching this are, but tuba in brass band is drastically different than tuba in a symphonic orchestra.
Yeah.
Which they're not even really the same instrument, because one's technically a sousaphone, but even the way it's written, it's so different.
The tuba in classical music isn't written as a bass instrument, which is a common misconception. Yes, sometimes we have those bump lines, but that's actually the double bass's job in the symphony. And so the tuba was more used for lyrical lines, because the range, like, 'cause for some, like in concert band music, the range is always usually low, but if you go to like a symphony, the tuba stuff can actually play up in like the trombone register.
Yeah.
And so like even the bass trombone plays lower than the tuba most of the time. And so like that's a big thing. And even the difference between a tuba in military band and symphonic band are entirely different, because it goes back to being the bass and the other stuff too.
Yeah, I think that's almost true of like any instrument. If you're playing in an orchestra, a normal like band, or any other like jazz group or anything, it's almost a completely different instrument. Like, yes, the notes and the stuff are the same, but the style and the feel and the technique are completely different.
And like the other thing too, like there's a difference between brass band tuba and jazz tuba still.
Yeah.
Jazz tuba, it requires a different timbre of tone, and then on top of that, it's more. You're definitely a bass line for the most part, and it's just you have to be a lot more fluid. Whereas like brass band sousaphone, you're kind of just a loud bass.
Yeah.
The whole entire time. So it's like that's what I've been trying to set up. And so honestly, like I've been looking at that, and then also the University of Mexico, I have really good connections with their professor there.
Yeah.
He's the first African American tuba professor in history.
Nice.
Wow.
So he's a really great guy, awesome story, and we've talked, and I might go back as a graduate assistant, and then once I think I get to my graduate degree, it's really gonna solidify what I want to do. Cause like the hard thing about Gateway Brass is like, once I leave, will it like remain like an actual thing? That would be a challenge, and like I think like conversation has to come down the road, because let's think about all who will still be here come technically my fresh start of my graduate degree. If you would have you, Nick, Austin, you.
Pretty much all the trombones.
Yeah. All the trombones would be there.
Well, Hazel's graduating a year early. At least that's her plan.
So then
maybe not Hazel.
Carl, so you would, Emma would be here. Carl, you. Trumpets, Reese, Nate.
Would Jay still be here?
Jay's graduating next year. Jay's already on track to graduate. And then, that's really it. So we wouldn't have, next year I think we definitely have to get new saxophone players, whether we like it or not, because Austin, I don't think staying. He's going to Washington, I'm pretty sure, for med.
We'll miss him.
Or he's taking a gap year,
one
or the other. And I think Ken's going to start getting pretty busy.
Yeah, well, even if Austin takes a gap year, it's probably not going to be in Phoenix.
He was thinking about staying here.
Oh, really?
He's thinking about it, but it's not very unlikely. But to say we even got 2 new saxophone players, right? The question is, so if I go to University of New Mexico, or even in Colburn in LA, right? There's still a possibility that we could have performances. They would be less frequent, and they would have to be ideally way bigger gigs. Like, I won't come out.
We'd almost need to get to a point where we could like schedule a tour of like 2 weeks of going and hitting some big venues.
Right.
Or else it's, at that point, it's not really feasible for any of us.
Right. For me, well, that's if I go out of state.
Yeah.
If I go to ASU, it's like nothing ever happened. We could still have rehearsals every week. We could still do that, but that's all dependent on how I finish out next semester. If I can get my grades back up, because like I'm not in danger of failing. It's just like it's way behind what I was doing last semester, and part of it has to do with this distance learning, and my teachers literally just are not very good at keeping up with everything. So it's
it's been tough on a lot of people.
Yeah,
I have some teachers that are really good about it, and I have other ones that it's a struggle to make it through that class.
For like last year, like if you look at my grades last year, I had like A's and B's, like nothing below B minus. But this year, like I have like majority of my 3 out of 3 of my grades right now are C's as we speak, and it's like that's usually not me. I've never gotten like C's like really like that, and like I do be putting in effort. I think I got to make up some assignments, which I'm not opposed to doing, but it's just like there's no communication on any front, especially when you have class once a week.
Yeah.
Which is very, like, I hate that you have class once a week, and then they're like, well, you should be doing work on the other day, and it's like, but I'm not in class, you gave me no instruction, what do you want me to do?
That's one of the benefits of being a tech major. They're all very clear of what they want, and they're posting everything, so I know exactly what I need to do.
But music isn't. Music is just
like... Yeah, music is so different.
And like, so like, for example, my music history professor, she's not a good music history professor for the most part when it comes to just like teaching. It's just more like, here's the PowerPoint, go ahead. And so I'm like, why do I need to have participation in your class, especially coming off the week of a pandemic? I'm not going to come to class because why would I risk being around multiple people when we just had a spike? I think that's not, especially when you post the lectures.
Yeah.
And it's just, you read the lectures word for word. If I didn't have the lecture notes and I came to your class and then it's like, okay, that makes more sense. Like, that would be stupid for me to miss.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. But it's like, she just puts them online. And like the second, like, why do I need to come in one day and listen to your lecture when literally you're going to do the same thing on Friday with the other set of notes? Like, and like, you can't even pick and choose what day you can go to class, which I also think is very dumb. Like, even on Zoom.
Yeah, well,
no. So like, say like for social distancing, right? Like, so say like, oh, I missed Wednesday. Something happened, something popped up. Okay, what if I was to come into class on Zoom on Friday, right? You can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
I think it depends on the class.
It's every class.
Well, then my teachers are breaking the rules.
One of
Oh,
nine
yeah.
is 2.
No, yeah, but like Dr. Luchmeyer told us the other day, he's like, technically I can't let you do that. Like, he was like, he went. But Jamie Lynn's the type of person who would be like, no. Like, I literally, so me and my friend, we were working on an assignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were just talking over it. And literally, I get on one of my assignments from her, I get a thing that says, this looks an awful like his. Next time you do it, I'm sending this to the dean. And I'm like, what did I do? And like, if you read the questions, right? It's like, is this true or false? True.
Mm-hmm.
Who created this? Who is responsible for this? This person. It wasn't like it was so profound. Like, it wasn't like the exam where it's like, okay, based off of this, give me all these details and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like that, if it would have been verbatim, I understand, but it really wasn't. It's just like, there's really only one way to answer this, and then I'm gonna answer that way. And she's like, I'm gonna send you to the, and it's like, what is that? What is this? How does this help you? Like, and like with her class too, we'll have like 4 assignments due on one day, and they're all so absurdly comprehensive for no reason. And like, you should see how our exam looks versus literally all the assignments she gives us, because
I can only imagine. That
like
sounds...
for my exam, she gives us the exam prompts like I think on the Wednesday before the test, and then you go into the test knowing the question, or like you have a broad idea of what your questions are going to be, and half the time the questions had nothing to do with what your homework was about.
Yeah.
Like all these key terms and whatnot. I'm like, why do I need to know this? Especially because we've only done choral music. We've not actually learned about anything like instrumental. Nothing. I'm like sitting there like,
dang.
I feel like I'm wasting my time, because why do I need to know every itty bitty little theory thing that's not applicable anymore? And it's not actually like history. It's more of like the evolution of music, not really music history. On like, I think we finally started the Baroque period on Wednesday. Like, finally started. Like, up until then, it was just like, we learned about like the Renaissance and like monks, like the choral music, for like 4 weeks. And I felt like I was reading the same thing over and over again, because it was like these very micro changes. Like, it wasn't this drastic thing. Like, so like week 1, it was drastic. So it started in Mesopotamia, then moved to Greece, then moved straight to the 800s and on. So you're like, okay, that works for me. That's music history. And then after that, it was just, we're stuck in from 800 to 1600, just learning like very like emotive. Like, I think we should have learned the general stuff and not just every itty bitty little thing. And then she's like,
yeah, it makes sense.
okay, I'm gonna make you do 6 assignments on it, and then your exam is 2 questions. 2 questions. And I'm also in the honors college, so I get the harder questions.
No.
I mean,
Me too. I'm in the honors college, so I feel that with
they
English.
give you the harder questions.
We both did. We had the same teacher.
Honestly, I don't think honors colleges were that. I'm also in the honors college,
Well,
and from taking a couple of honors classes, it's literally just more work with no point.
No. And like, so like, you get to graduate with, I think it's a medal and a stamp on your certificate that says you did honors college. But like, if you go apply like to another university, or you put that on your resume, it doesn't mean anything. Like, if you went to whatever ASU's honors college is, boom, like you would get automatically like a little bit of a higher regard. But GCU honors college are like,
yeah, especially like as a computer science major, if you're going into industry, they don't care if you went to an accredited college with an honors college degree. They care that you can code, and they want to look at your portfolio.
Right.
So it really means
I mean,
nothing.
with music, it's like, can you play?
Yeah,
Can you play
Same
well?
with like with worship.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like, can you play? And with that, it's also, and for music, it's this way too. But for worship leading, especially, or like leading a team, can you collaborate well?
Yeah, can you
That's
work
really
well?
like, can you make connections with people that are meaningful and communicate effectively?
If I'm being real with you though, it doesn't even matter. Like that, like for your industry, it might work. For my industry, you don't have to play nice. You don't have to. It's highly recommended, because these communities will stretch from when you start them to like way later in your career. Like, they will be your friends down the road, and they'll be ones picking you up and stuff. Like, for example, like, I was like only 18 and a half, like 18 years old when Kevin was telling me, hey, go friend these guys on Facebook. And these guys are like 30, 40, 50 years old. But one of the people I networked with was Dr. White, the guy I went and auditioned for. Oh. And now we have a solid friendship. Like, Kevin knew him back when he was in college. Kevin, like, can literally list all these different people, like all these people in these major symphonies that he's close with because he established those connections early on.
Yeah.
And, like, I had a tuba player who plays in a New York ensemble. I don't think it's necessarily the New York Philharmonic, but it's one of the bands in New York who literally reached out to me and was like, dude, do what you keep doing what you're doing.
Wow.
Like, great stuff. But, like, I guarantee you, if I ever came off as like an a-hole to somebody, as like another tuba player, it'll come back and bite you, like, later on. Like when we went to Anaheim
for the Disneyland band audition.
and like with Spencer,
yeah,
me and Spencer hit it off really well, and like we established a connection. He's at UCLA and I'm here, and like we still have like good conversations. Like, it's better for you to establish, like, not to be an a-hole in music, but at the same time, like, if you can collaborate well with others, I think it'll benefit not only your playing, but like just your life skills in general, because those are people you're going to be able to rely on.
Oh yeah.
Years
Plus,
down
I also
the road.
feel like, at least with me personally, I play a lot better when I'm happy and among friends than if I hate people there.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I agree with that. But like the other thing too is like the whole selfish me, like I'm going to be the best that I can be, rather than like trying to help out. Like, that's the kind of mentality that you have to choose. Like, I mean, if you go to the East Coast, it's more predominant on the East Coast, you get a lot more stuck up. It's about me, I'm the greatest kind of musicians. And like Ryan Hatmaker told us about that, especially when he said, like, it was a Disney band, I think it was the year before him, who majority of them were from New York. And they did not work well together at all. Like, literally, it was horrible. And they don't take anybody from New York anymore because of that. Like, he said that his year, they didn't take anyone from New York because of that mentality of, I'm better than you. I'm not going to be friendly. And, I mean, it can work to your advantage if you really want it to. If you really want to be like, oh, I'm going to only focus on me, not really try to be buddy-buddy. Like, that's not necessarily the best mindset to go through. Like, when I walked into that Disney audition, right, I'm going to be real. I sat there amongst them, and I'm like, I'm better than you, like, internally, like, and not even in a stuck-up way. It's just, I'm confident in myself to know that I am going to outplay you, or at least I'm going to try and play at your level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Which I don't think that's a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. It's like, I was just having, like, some self-instilled confidence in myself, just because I can't come in being intimidated by anybody who also plays my instrument, who also, like, because they had some scary resumes. Not gonna sit there in front. Like, Spencer was telling me, he's a double performance and ed major who goes to UCLA, who's the tuba captain, all this and that, was playing in another thing that night, and was just like, yeah, but like, I was like, that's cool. And like, maybe I still kept my head, like, I know how I can play as a musician, but at the same time, I had respect for his level of talent as well.
Yeah.
It's not like disrespectful. I recognize real talent recognizes real talent.
Yeah,
like, real
exactly.
recognizes
That's
real.
true.
And so that's the mentality I think musicians should have going forward, like, with all that kind of stuff. Like, if you want to be moving on to the next level or making it in any of your industries, is you have to recognize the talent and respect the talent that you are going up against. Like, if you don't have anything to back it up, if I was to be like, I'm the best trombone player on campus right now, and I'm like, if I told you straight up, I'm a better trombone player than you, and had nothing to back it up, like, that's just being an a-hole. But if, like, I said, I'm a pretty good trombone player, I think I might be able to hold my own against you, but I still know that you're still a good trombone player, like, that's a fair thing to do. And it's not, as long as you're not being disrespectful to the other person.
Yeah. And I think, as musicians, we should all, like, not necessarily, well, I mean, we should be humble, but not, like, super humble to the point of, like, oh, no, I'm really not that good. Like,
Oh, that's worse.
Yeah.
I feel like...
It's like, if you're good, you should be able to say, like, yeah, I'm good at my instrument, but going to the point where you're saying like, oh, I'm better than you, you're garbage is...
Yeah, you have to be the happy medium.
It's not helpful to anybody.
Yeah, it's not helping anybody. You have to be able to say like, yeah, I'm pretty good, you're also pretty good, here's some advice to get better.
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta give pointers and be like, yo, I tried this, I tried doing this. And like, I think that's the other thing too, is sharing your knowledge with other people goes a long way. And also the other thing too is not everything that you do also is gonna work for everybody. Like for me, like personally, like I remember saw a guy who did like 100 days of practice and was playing these certain things. And I'm like, that's cool. But I knew if I was to do that, I can't do that. Like, it's just, I don't work. My brain processes stuff totally different. Mm-hmm. Like, for me, I have to spend a lot more time listening. And then, well, I mean, it's not like I just sit there and listen and never touch my horn.
Yeah.
But I have to touch my horn at least one time a day. I don't have to go for super long. But if I can focus on something core, I can do that. Where he's, like, switching, like, between, like, 5 different instruments and whatnot. He's switching, doing all this and that. And, like, for me... I have to do it a certain way, but like I could take stuff from what he was doing and apply that to what I was doing. Like that could help me out in the long run. Like it's just you have to find like so sharing your knowledge is good, but you don't have to do it just because someone else decides, oh, I'm not going to do it like that doesn't mean oh that's disrespectful. Maybe it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it helps to like take their advice and modify it so that you know it's going to work best for you.
Yeah.
How does that work with drumming? Do you think about the same stuff with that, or?
Like in regards to looking at other drummers?
Yeah.
Or? Yeah, I would say so. Like I actually had that experience quite a bit with 2 people that come to mind. One is my good friend from high school, Micah Miranda. He's a great drummer at ASU right now, actually. And I feel like that's the best example I can think of recently of like a very functional drumming friendship where like he's probably a better jazz drummer overall than I am, but there are things that we're better at than others. Like sometimes I'm a little bit better at like gelling with a band right away or like listening to what they're doing and responding to it, whereas he's a lot better at the technical like stylistic sides of jazz, and he's a little bit more versatile than I am, and he's proven it very well. Like he in his last 2 years of high school drumming, he won best all-state drummer in Arizona twice in a row.
That's impressive.
And last year he's very good at keys too, so we have a lot in common because for those of you who don't know, keyboard is my first instrument, and so I played the piano for 11 years and drum set for 6. So that was my first instrument, and he had kind of a similar story, so we were able to bond off of that. But anyways, for both instruments, like my friend Micah had a lot more traditional, like guided approach where he was given a lot more classical lessons. So technically, technically speaking, I looked at that and it was hard to separate, oh my gosh, he's so much better than me, from this is also the guy that I love to hang out with all the time. And we ended up teaching each other like a lot of great things that made us better musicians just by playing with each other.
Yeah.
You know?
I kind of feel like a similar thing for me last year playing with Wade when he was still here.
Yeah.
Like Wade is a vastly superior jazz trombone player, or jazz trombone player than I am. But after one of the concerts, he had made a comment of like that I was much better at classical stuff than him, which I don't know if I would say that's true, but he thought it anyway. So
I think I'd have to agree with him on that, because if you've listened to Wade's sound, Wade has a certain tone, and so that tone does not fit in the concert environment, whereas your tone fits way better than his did, if that makes sense. Like, if we're being honest, if I was to play trombone, like I've played trombone, not as much as I used to, but like compared to the last 2 years, but if I was to play trombone in like wind ensemble, it would not sound good. Jazz, it'll work. Where like you were now, well, you've also gotten a lot better, but I would say last year you were definitely more on that concert sound.
Yeah, I feel like I'd know more of like the jazz technique, but the jazz tone just, I never really used it in high school. So it's been something I tried to get a little better at, but for reasons I don't want to talk about, I'm no longer in jazz band. And
understandable.
yeah.
If you want to come back, it's not as bad as it used to be. I'll tell you that.
It's
It's
been
way
really
more
fun being in combos with you.
Yeah, dude. Let me tell you, Austin. Like, I'm not telling you gotta make a hard-pressed decision, but it's so much more fun now than it was back then. It's not the same drill sergeant people. And I think also it was really hard because we had first of all, we thought we were gonna have 6 trombone players. And so
This year?
No, last year.
Oh, yeah.
When we first started, and that also created. I feel like there was a tension created by the section, which was a lot on top, was created with Andy just not adapting his teaching style as well. Where I think now he's learned because, like, I'll be honest, like, I didn't practice last week on any of the jazz stuff and came in and he had extreme patience and busted down this one section. Whereas had I done that last year, would have been like, what is wrong with you? Like, it's like, and so, like, I feel like now that the people who are very just negative, like that, I think that's also that just doing a general thing in the band. All the people who are really negative are just gone, and it allows a much easier going environment. So if you do want to check it out, I mean, I would give it a second chance because it's just me and Hazel, and we're about to do "Mood Indigo" by Wycliffe Gordon. You do check it out.
I don't follow jazz music.
No.
Wycliffe is really good.
Wycliffe is. I guarantee you've heard what's the song called? It's like.
Which one?
Shoot.
One of my favorites from Wycliffe is actually a song called "Toast My Bread." That my friend Nathan back in high school did a really fun transcription of that one, and
it's just
Wycliffe.
such a great title.
It's so funny, but yeah, it's kind of it's like a metaphor, but it's all good.
Mood Indigo's Mood Indigo. It's Swing That Music.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's the one. Have you seen it where he has like he has the baby trombone, and he's playing with North Texas, and he starts he's singing and he's scatting, and then he comes out with this little baby
I've probably
trombone.
seen it.
It's probably one of the most famous in the past 5 years, like probably one of the most famous jazz things. But there's that. But Mood Indigo, it's a trombone trio with piano, drums, bass, and it's super. Dude, it sounds so cool. Like there's just like a part where it's all super slow, like da do da da, and so like there's a part where it switches up into like almost like a double time feel, and it's like bump 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 ba do ba do ba do ba do, and it's like, dude, you gotta check it. Like the music looks super complicated, but it's so like easy to follow. Like it'd be awesome to have another trombone on it.
Does Wycliffe sing in that one or not?
No, it's just that's just trombones just
Gotcha.
playing. Also, another crazy thing about it is the trombones use multiphonics in it. I can't play it, but I mean...
I've been working on multiphonics. Not to say it's good by any means. It still sounds like garbage.
It takes time, dude.
But I can really only do it in the low register.
I mean, that's how it works.
B flat down to pedal B flat. Anything above that, it just kind of falls off.
The other thing, I'll give you a tip. You just got to sing higher, too.
Yeah,
for it to work.
I'm not good at singing.
No, I'm not
whatsoever.
either. That's why it took me a minute to understand how to do multiphonics on a tuba. I mean, it's easier to do it on tuba because it's like...
Yeah, you have bigger tubes.
You have... Not bigger, it's just your shank is like this big, so when you sing, it works just a little bit better. Not saying that it's easy, but it's...
Yeah.
I've worked on getting it way cleaner than compared to like last year when I first started doing multiphonics. Like now I can do it like almost on command. Whereas last year it was like I'd be lucky to get it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I understand. But dude, you were a better classical player than Wade was. And then
I appreciate you saying.
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't lie about that. I don't lie about how people's abilities when it comes to playing. I've never believed in that. Like, and that's not even to be mean. It's just like I can't give you false confidence because that's one of the worst things to do to a musician is give them false confidence. I hate hearing like you're doing so. Like I don't want to hear that because that's not the reality.
Not true.
Don't tell me that because that'll get people built on a high horse and then like I remember my band directors used to do that where like.
Well, I also, on the flip side of that, I also feel like a lot of musicians are more critical of themselves than other people.
No, yeah.
So I can understand like a little bit of like it wasn't as bad as you thought it was.
No, but that's true. Like but I'm not saying like I'm literally just gonna tear you apart every single time.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is like the critical I think the issue that musicians are running into is like it's all they want to hear is how well they're doing, and like I mean yes you're not doing horrible, but at the same time it doesn't mean that's the thing. I feel like people when they take like that sounded like pretty good. It's more like instead of thinking that what they didn't need improvement, they think that's good means it's perfect and I can just go out and deliver with that. And I do not like that mentality one bit. Like I had a director, it was when I was like, this dated back to like when it started when I was in 8th grade, but like it was this one girl. She had been playing trombone, quote unquote, since the 4th grade. First of all, she held her trombone, so you know how your trombone's supposed to sit like where the bell faces this way, and so your slide comes out like this, right? So you can move it up and down. No, she still played with her trombone like sideways, bless you.
Excuse me.
Where the trombone like was tilted onto her shoulder, and so the slide was like this. Right. And she was a 7th grader by the time I was in 8th grade, and she'd been playing since she was in the 4th grade. She could barely play a B-flat scale, but she was in jazz somehow. And she was playing second chair, and I'm like, but he would tell her, like, she's doing good, and I'm like, why are you telling her this? Like, it wasn't like for me to be mean, it was just like, let's be real, like, to be in jazz band, I remember auditioning, it was like, you needed to know, it wasn't like too much, I think you needed to know B-flat, E-flat, maybe A-flat, and you needed to know your B-flat blues, and you had to be able to read down one of the pieces.
Yeah.
Super simple. And then, but with her, it was just like...
Is it still middle school? Or like,
yeah, it was middle school.
Yeah, at that point, I'd say if you can do B-flat blues and like read a piece...
Right, I think that's not bad. Like, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
But like, she didn't know any of it, and like, we would go to competitions, and it's like, it's competitive, and like, some of the stuff we were playing was not easy. Like, I was playing high B-flat in 8th grade on first trombone. like he was pulling out pieces like that, and the second part's playing like F in the staff, but she was on the second chair. Couldn't even play like a D, which was like music terms. I'm so sorry. Essentially, in the roundabout way, she couldn't play anything high or do it well.
At that point, it's like mid-range.
But that's mid-range. Even that's not even mid-range, but it's like she couldn't play like she couldn't play. And that was really frustrating because he would tell her like you're doing really good, and I understand positive reinforcement, but when there's no push to do better, people automatically think like I'm set, I'm good. Yeah. And this came back when we got to my sophomore year and she was in marching band and we were doing field show. She still couldn't play any of the stuff. Like, no improvement. And the problem with us then was we switched, so all trombone players had to move to marching baritone for a field show. We didn't march trombones. And so...
I feel like that's normal.
That's usually normal when you do field show. Well, I mean, there's some shows that requires you to do bone, but it's not very smart. And it's
more,
usually
it's
jazz.
more like just a bone feature if you're going to do it. And then they just like stand there, play, put them down, grab a baritone.
Grab a baritone, carry on. But so we were marching baritones. She had to learn how to play valves. Mm-hmm. Not super difficult. The transition's not hard at all, in my opinion, because I also been playing euphonium, so like I had an advantage, but like the notes are the same.
Yeah.
Like a B flat on a trombone is a B flat on a baritone. It's open. You just had to figure out, okay, position 2 on my trombone is second valve. 3 is 1. 4 is 1 and 2.
From a little bit different perspective from me, because I've also tried to learn valves a little bit my senior year of high school. Haven't really touched it since, but learning the notes was okay. It was sight reading and playing fast stuff that I could not do on valves, but I could do on trombone.
Yeah.
So if it's anything like slow or not super fast, I was fine. But if it was anything fast, I can understand why it might be a little difficult if you've only played trombone for 7 years.
The only issue that I had with that, too, was we got our instruments as soon as school got out. We went in one day and we checked out our horns, checked out your marching baritone, and you had the whole summer to like learn. and like play and like do what you needed to do to get ready for band camp. And then we still had band camp, but like by the time we got to mid-season, like when we were about to start performing at field shows and stuff, I knew that she wasn't playing. Like I knew she was faking it. And I remember so we had to do a playing test in front of our section leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a sophomore, like I was better than my section leader. Love you, Danny. But like I just knew it was better. Just I was playing the solo part and stuff. But I remember her sitting in, and she didn't know the first movement. She didn't know the second movement. She didn't know the third movement. Didn't know the fourth movement.
Oh,
and
geez.
we had all that amount of time to learn it and memorize it. Didn't have a clue what we were playing, and I'm like,
Jeez.
and then like she was still being like got off the hook for that, and I'm like, bro, like as a musician, wouldn't that bother you?
Yes, it would.
You had no improvement from like, and that's with anything. Like, if you stay stagnant for so long on one thing, like, what are you getting from that? In my opinion, like, I don't see the point in pursuing something if you don't really
get better at it.
Like, and like, I understand if you want to do stuff for fun, but even I feel like you improve if it's fun for you. You still improve.
Yeah.
But it's like, what are you doing if you're still like no effort? Like, and it's like, even if you don't, okay, like in high school, I didn't practice, which is my biggest regret, just because I didn't think it was important at the time. I didn't even know if I was going to go into music later on. But like, I was like, even then, I still got better.
Yeah.
I always got better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, it's like, even if you touch your horn, you will get better. And so, like, for me, I'm like, I would just show up to rehearsal, play, put my instrument away, not touch it. So I'm wondering, like, what goes on in, like, anyone's head when it's like, you don't get better at what you're doing. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like,
I'd kind of agree with you. I never really practiced in high school. I should clarify that. I practiced for auditions, for all stage
for
and
auditions
like,
and stuff,
I practiced for those. Pep band music, concert band music, jazz music, I didn't practice any of that. I kind of just showed up and played it.
Yeah.
But I mean, by the time I got to my junior year, I don't mean this to sound cocky, but my junior year, I could play most of the stuff he came out sight reading, or he passed out sight reading, and it would be a piece that we would play 3 months later at a festival. I was like, at that point, my band also wasn't super good, so that's just where I was. So I didn't feel like I really needed to practice that stuff. But I practiced for all state and stuff.
Yeah, but
this is kind of tangent, but what do you think, like, after performance that you did that, or like was a bad performance, a non-music person comes up to you and says like, "Oh, you guys did great." What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
question.
For me personally, I just smile and say thank you, because like, that's the thing about being a musician. So you're a performer as well, and even though you personally messed up and you personally were just like, this was terrible, this is my worst take, don't ruin it for other people, because that could have been the greatest thing that they've ever seen in their whole entire lives. And if you give it away, it like kind of just like it, one, it takes it away from them, but two, the first thing you do if someone comes up to you and you're like, hey, if I came up to Colter and was like, hey Colter, your piano solo was just so good, man, like I couldn't believe it. And the first thing Colter does is, well, it was probably my worst run of it. I like messed this up. I did, like, that automatically would just like make me just like not want to listen anymore. I'm just like, that, okay, thank you for, like, I understand you're upset, but like, just take it with a grain of salt. Like, just smile and wave. It's like a smile and wave. Like, you could have been like, yeah, I really appreciate that. Might not have been my best, but like, I really appreciate that comment, just because they don't know. Like, and you know what you need to improve on, and it's like,
I feel like that's kind of also the reason I never like watching the like behind the scenes of like how movies were made and stuff, because I feel like it ruins the movie experience. When I watch a scene, it's like, oh, I know how they made that. It breaks my suspension of reality, and then it doesn't feel as it takes away the joy from watching it, I think.
Right, yeah, I think with, like, it's just musicians, it's like, we expect, the crazy thing about when you practice for something You're never going to play the same thing the same way ever twice in a row. Ever. And so, like, it's just how well prepared are you to play this? And so, like, error is inevitable. And that's the other thing. I remember Kevin telling me this. Here we go. So Kevin told us this in brass ensemble my freshman year, and he was like, there was one time where I played a piece 100% correct. Like, he's like, that's only happened one time. It was my worst performance I had ever had because it was just so plain. No musical risks, no nothing. He said,
Interesting.
I didn't feel anything. I felt the most alive when I took my risks and I took the chance to make musical things, like to make music. Because when you play it 100% correct, it's like you're reading it. You're not being interactive with it. And like the whole point of music is to be interactive with it. So like if you do make a mistake and it's like one of the worst performances, were you trying to be musical with it?
Yeah.
That's the question you have to ask yourself is, was I being musical?
I feel like that's also the more important thing in like a brass band group like we do is most of our pieces seem to like have a conversation with the audience and we feed off of each other's energy. So if we're not bringing anything, then the audience doesn't give anything back.
Yeah.
And if we're giving stuff to the audience and the audience gives stuff back, it just is a so much better time for all of us.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I'd have to agree with you on that. Like, because you can tell, like, the infamous Palo Verde game.
I was about to bring that up.
Infamous. I know we bring it. I think, what's the count on how many times we brought that up in a podcast? Are we on like 3, 4?
I don't know.
Like everything we brought up every single
It's
podcast.
like at least once an episode.
Yeah, but it's like you got like the culture vultures, and so like you automatically knew like, oh, this got drained. Like all our energy was drained, even though we put out all of this. But you could tell like it affected us greatly. But then you go like last grand gig.
Oh, that.
And you putting out energy brought it back.
They gave back more energy than I've ever seen a crowd bring back.
Shout out Nick and Uncomfy Pillows for that one because like your guys
set it up real well.
at the grand was like a good touch. It definitely got people involved, but like being able to have a conversation with the crowd and like having fun, like letting them know I'm having fun even though I'm messing up. Because let's be honest, we messed up ballad really bad. Really bad, and like no one knew, like, because I remember sitting there like, okay, it's about to start, and Chelsea didn't play, and I'm like, what's going on? And Chelsea and Reese started playing, and I'm just like,
well, okay, in Reese's defense, it was his first time ever playing it in concert.
And I think it was Chelsea's first time on a different part too.
That's
there's
true.
no blame to be passed. Like I understand. Like,
no blame, but
there's other songs that we've messed up, butchered. Yada yada, etc., etc. I'm not saying that. It's just like there's instances where we know stuff will happen, and you just got to keep rolling with it. And like people are like I think it was Jonathan, it was Micah, or like, dude, Ballad of the Eagle Claw was so phenomenal, and I'm like.
We had that one Instagram comment that I don't think we can repeat on podcast, but
which one? I'll read it, but I will censor it.
Yeah,
that was an interesting.
And this is for someone who, like, we don't know. They just tagged us in a post and posted this, which,
oh my goodness.
Hold up.
Oh, maybe Colter hasn't heard it. Have you?
I don't think I have.
Colter, this is gonna hurt your children's ears, dude. This one hit dip. Maybe she deleted the post. I hope. Oh, I think she did.
Oh. She probably saw it the next morning and deleted it.
Nah, I don't think that's what it was. Let me check. Let me see. I gotta go way back. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. That gig was a blast, though. The last grand gig.
Oh, it was so much fun. We played not great, but for the amount of time we had to prepare after having like 6 months of not playing together, I thought it went phenomenally well.
Yeah.
And the crowd energy was so great.
Yeah. Okay, I remember the comment. But she pulled up. It's on Ballad of the Eagle Claw. She recorded us.
Oh, I do remember it now.
And
I remember it now. That had us rolling on the floor.
It had me rolling
like
on the
it
floor.
really did.
It was pretty just.
That, yeah. It was enough to interrupt rehearsal.
Here it is. I found the post. I found the post.
Oh.
It was IGTV. That's why.
Oh.
Oh no.
Okay.
It not gonna lie, it made me quite uncomfortable when I saw that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this avid fan of ours recorded us during Ballad of the Eagle Claw. So this wasn't even one of like our like romantic songs or
Nope.
just our it's just not. It's just like this is literally like headbanging. Like this is like I hate my life. I'm here to cause absolute chaos. Like that's the kind of vibe that you get from it.
Yes.
And she took a video of us and then commented, these are my words, or her words, do not shoot the messenger. Have you ever heard music that just makes your fill in the blank throb? And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my jaw dropped. Like, I didn't know whether to be like,
Oh my goodness.
like ecstatic or like slightly like,
Personally, I was a little disturbed, but
I mean, I'll take it because that's not gonna lie, that's kind of an accomplishment. If you can, if that part of your music can make someone do that, like, I mean, you kind of gotta just weigh the odds. Think about it, like, if it was able to do that,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
you take your dubs. You just take your win. Just collect your win. Like, not all wins are gonna be clean ones.
yeah.
So like,
That's
and
true.
I loved the comment. Like, it made my night. It made me laugh really hard. Like,
Yeah,
it was
it's
just
pretty
like,
funny.
it's a great choice of words. Like, if we're being honest, like, but yeah, but I mean, energy. Like, people totally dig off of that. So, shout out our fans for just.
Some field hockey.
Maybe if they were actually good, they'd get it in the net.
Oh, yikes.
That's none of my business.
All right. Well, we are coming up on an hour now. So, I have a Colter quote.
A Colter quote.
Oh
Another
boy.
Colter quote to end the day.
I'm here for it this time.
Yeah, you're here for it. You can defend yourself.
No, I'll probably just explain it.
Oh, man. Now we have the man, the myth, the legend right here, Mr. Wholesome. He's just always so pure. Like, I don't think. Oh, what's the quote?
Oh,
I
boy.
gotta find which one it was.
I just put words together in the worst ways sometimes.
You don't realize it, and that's okay.
Exactly.
See, because you're not thinking like how we think. And you know what? I know you're in college, but just keep it going for a little bit longer. Just a little bit. Hold on out for a little bit longer.
All right. So this is Colter describing a mock conversation he was having with a girl. He said, "What school did you go to? What clubs are you in? What position?"
A man of getting straight to the point. Okay. In that respect. Did she answer though?
Yeah, she did.
You might want to explain the context.
Yeah, you want
on
to
this
explain the
one.
context to me?
So basically, this was, I think it was a few weeks ago, where, it had been a pretty lazy day. It was a day where I had only blended classes, and so I was in my room for most of the day. And so I was thinking, I'll go outside, get my soccer ball. I'll be a little active today for a change. And I ended up seeing one of the girls on the Division I soccer team here. And so, I was engaging conversation with her. We eventually started passing the ball. And then I was asking her, what position in soccer, but I didn't say, what position on the field. I just said, what position.
I mean,
but she knew what I meant.
In that context
she
of the
knew what I
conversation,
meant.
but in that context of the conversation, that's understandable. Like, what
Yeah.
position? Like, that makes sense. Like, I understand that.
Yeah.
But really out of context,
Yeah.
It
Really out of
sounds pretty
context,
bad.
that sounds like a good Tinder pickup line. Like, hey, what school? What position? And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, forward. And you're like, did I say sports? Did I say sports? No. Okay, that's what I thought. See, that's why you have to keep your innocence going, because you could be like me, where like literally majority of my humor is very out of pocket, very out of. Like today, we were sitting in wind ensemble, and Paul so I had a doctor beat out, so it was like a metronome, and I went to turn them. We were playing a piece, and we had the mat on, and there's a part where it picks up from what tempo we were at to presto, so it just jumps. And so what I was going to do was I was going to take my foot out of my crock and just tap the button to take it out, right? And Paul saw this, like I accidentally hit it, like right before he counted us off. And he's like, ew, that's gross. I'm like, Paul, I wash my feet. Like, I don't care. He's like, yeah, that's gross, blah, blah, blah. Who does that? Nobody touched that. And I'm like, I don't see what the issue is, especially if I have a thing for feet. And just said that, and like no one heard me. And I'm very glad no one heard me.
Oh my
Let's make this a disclaimer. I don't have a thing. And it's getting scary because, like, you know how if you joke about something so much, it just becomes reality? I think I'm going to somehow get to that threshold of, like, I've joked about toes and feet way too much to the point where it's actually, no, I won't do that. I have my boundaries. I set my boundaries. But yes, that's don't be like me. You can have a joke here or there, but all my humor is just very like, you can literally say like something that's not even remotely like adult, and I'll just be like, that's what she said. No, okay, you gotta blow this way. I play a brass instrument, for Christ's sake. Like, come on. You know how many times you're going to hear that one?
If we're talking about the brass instrument that takes the crown for innuendos, it's got to be the trombone.
Not even close,
no,
man.
Absolutely.
Like, literally, it's a slide instrument. Like, it's just like a bone. Got to go play my bone. Go play with my bone real quick. Like, which one? Ha 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 ha. Have you ever tried explaining to someone why your right arm is stronger than the left? And it's because I play trombone, and they're like, and I'm like, no, for real, like, you have to sit here all the time, just.
Actually, if you're playing trombone correctly,
it doesn't
your
involve.
left arm should be stronger.
Really?
Because if you're playing properly, this is what my old private lesson instructor would always tell me. You should be holding the entire weight of your trombone on your left hand. Your right just moves the slide. The slide should not be bearing any weight of the trombone because that's bad for it.
Yeah.
So you should be holding the entire weight with your left arm, so your left arm should actually be stronger.
What if your trombone is like a pea shooter though? You can like literally the thing is like I wouldn't even really use my left hand. It's my shoulder would hold all of it, and I'm just that's what I'm saying. Like I've never once just sat there with my trombone just out here, and then I've always had it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does rest on your shoulder, but of the weight you're holding, it should all be your left hand. You shouldn't hold any weight on the slide.
No, I don't think I've ever done that.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying you have, but I'm just saying, the technical correct way to hold the trombone is all the weight on your...
No, yeah, okay. I just still think it's funny. My friend used to say that. It's like, yeah, my right arm's super strong just because I do that, and people just think that I'm not doing that. And like, okay. There's that. There's all the stupid band innuendo jokes. If anybody makes a joke about tonguing or fingering one more time, I will sleep you because I know you don't get any action. You guys are the type of people to make jokes and be like, oh, well, trumpet players do it best because we have all these. And it's like, no, you don't. You can't even go out on a date with a girl. How do you even expect to do that? God. And when you do, you guys break up within a week. So either you're lying or something's not adding up. I'm just saying. I hate those people who are like, the big kids do. No. You have to get in the vicinity of someone else that's not your pillow or in order to be.
And on that note.
And on that note. With my rant. This has been the Gateway Brass Experience with Austin Chandler, our special guest Colter, Bonaroti, and always me, Nate Swift.
Swift hit out.
The boy here with you. I don't know when I'm going to be dropping anything else. We will try and have a podcast out for you guys next week.
We should be more on top of it now that we're through midterms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. Also, when you're watching this is going to be post-election, but let your sorrows go, ladies and gentlemen. It's okay. The world's a dumpster fire already. Let's just vibe, dude. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying attention. I'm just like, let's just get through it together, guys. Let's just do it. So, I hope this podcast was a little bit of brightness in this dark, very long week, and we're probably gonna be watching this next week. So, if you're tuning in, well, good night, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast tonight. Nice.
That was fun, guys.
An hour of content. Oh, we forgot to announce who's gonna be on next week.
Oh.
All
right.
Oh.
Well,
we'll do that next. It's a surprise next week.
It's Hazel, right?
Yeah, it's Hazel.
All right.
Gotcha.
Another big personality.